We're talking about show formats and how TV show formats can work for you. And in this next section, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the kind of elements that you can use and how you can make those elements, not elephants, work for you. So let's go and look at some elephants. At the end of this, I'm also going to share a resource list with you. And of course, at the very end of the course, be sure to check out those as well. So production elements. And the first thing that I want to talk to you a little bit about is how can you work with the problem of copyright? Now, a lot of people are very cautious, of course, and rightfully so, about the kind of images that they use in their presentations, particularly if you're going to have paid for material, but also you can't get away necessarily with educational material if it is stuff that is copyrighted. So how does this thing of copyright work? Well, first of all, do you have the copyright to the material? And the easy question is here, did you create the image or did you create the sound? And in most cases, if you didn't, it's likely that you don't have the copyright. But there are places where you can get permission or you could have rights for material, and those would usually be licenses that you can purchase online, and there are many of those I'm going to share with you in the resource section. There is something that people call fair use, and they say, but if I've used it for educational purposes, and if I use a popular song for less than 30 seconds, I can get away with it because it is not. Be careful of fair use, the concept, and this is not legal advice. Please do check it with a legal person, but the general rule of thumb is that fair use would be something that jumps into action if a legislation or if a law was actually broken or somebody did decide to challenge you on their rights. If you have music, for example, or a visual that somebody will challenge you on something like YouTube and Vimeo will immediately cut you, and you will then have to prove that it is yours or that you do have the rights to that material. So try and avoid those because you don't want to be in a situation like that. It is uncomfortable. It is not fun to have to fight for something that you actually did borrow from somewhere on the Google search. Here is a list, and this is a kind of an interesting thing of things that you can create. So start thinking about moving backgrounds that you can create on slides, stock footage and music. We're going to talk about clocks. I'm going to show you how quotes and animations could work, or even how you can animate commercials and sponsor messages. So right off the bat, I would show you this, which is a different version of the same slide, but it has an animation. The moment that you put something like that in, it immediately makes the static slide, particularly slides with a lot of information, just come alive. Now there's something else that you can do, which is to download a moving background. And here's my same slide with a moving background, and we can actually tolerate this a little bit longer because it looks quite pretty and there's motion. So particularly in a download or an online streaming space, people feel more comfortable watching a slide when there's motion, just purely because it doesn't feel as if we're buffering and it's holding, right? Because you don't want that to happen. So the next one that I have is an example of how you can use visual. And this is a very simple stock shot that I've just placed under a title, and it is in PowerPoint. And I think it's quite effective because it gives us a moment to make a point and take a breath. You could even put a piece of music under that and it will hold because it's something that just takes our audience elsewhere. So see if you could use stock footage, and I'm going to give you some cues as to where you can go and find stock footage. But they definitely have a different impact and different flavor to what the presentation is about. And when they do run out and pause, it isn't that offensive either. Now, the next thing that I want to show you is something that I use a lot, and it is particularly when I want people to have a comfort break or so. And this one is so beautiful that I'm actually going to show it to you and let it play out. Now, this particular comfort break that I had was only 1.5 minutes, and it started with some gentle music, and then it got to be quite dramatic, and I quite like that. Now, this is all stock footage. I edited it myself, so I have the rights to it, I have a license, and the music is also licensed. You'll notice some sounds I put in the background as well. That's just a 3D graphic, but it felt nice and I used it. comfort break, this is something that you could easily use just purely to get a little bit of a moment going. The next thing I want to talk to you about is how you can use quotes and animate them. Again, there are fantastic templates that you can get online to actually animate video and title, and here's an idea of one. I just did a quick quote. And do remember that if you're going to use quotes, try and do something that's unusual or use something that's not overused, because it'll have more impact. I'm not going to keep that on close up for you the whole time because it'll drive you crazy. And then here's something that you would have seen sometimes in my webinars when I take a moment and say, I'm going to be back right after this break, and I play out these little ads, which are, again, templates, very simple to produce, very easy, and they are kind of toe tapping.
Yes, we do.
So I would say to you, don't fret if it's something that you are worried that you can't do. This is very easy achievable. These are templates that you can fill colors and fonts, and it's really easy. I mean, if I could have learned it, then certainly it must be simple. But I can also put you in touch with young freelance artists who are just sitting at the moment needing to do something, and somebody can help you to get this going for yourself. So don't fret about how you're going to produce it. At the moment, just start thinking about something that you could do and the difference that you can make. And so we get into this section of a resource list. Immediately I can think of Pexels. Pexels is a fantastic website where you can go and find wonderful photographs. They are rights free. All you have to do is credit the actual creator and they will be happy for you to use it. I sometimes have some of those in my presentations, and sometimes I would do the credit at the end of the presentation also, so that a single page would credit 3 or 4 different artists. There's something called PNG Tree if you want interesting pictures like my remote controls or stuff like that. Very easy to download, and because the background is transparent, it means you can immediately pop it into a PowerPoint and it'll take on the background of your slide, which is wonderful. Stock Options is a great one to go and purchase, really high-end images. And also for video and mood music, you could use Storyblocks, which I love and use all the time. In fact, all of my templates come from there, and all of the stock footage that you saw in the wonderful underwater world, for a very reasonable fee monthly. I subscribe, or you could subscribe once off, select all the stuff that you want for a specific product, and then you don't have to subscribe again next month. So you could just turn on when you needed it. Let's get to an exercise. Now this exercise is really for you to do a little bit of show planning. I want you to look at your acts, teaser and cliffhanger included, and see if there are some production elements that you can jot down that you think that may enhance this message that you would like to have. Again, don't worry for the moment about whether you can produce them yourself or how you're going to execute it. You'll always find a way. I find it's wonderful just to put the target out there first and start thinking about it, because it'll come. All right? So have some fun with this exercise. I'll see you on the other side of it.